Okay, we'll get going, and if anybody else shows up, they'll get here when they get here. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are across the nation. Um, Most of you probably know me. I'm Terry Adamson. I'm the technical director with Fenestration Canada, and I have Dave Goldsmith with me. Dave's the co-chair of the Tech Services Committee with Fenestration Canada. Dave, you want to say good morning
Good morning, everyone from Calgary.
from Calgary? Is it snowing, Dave?
No, but it is cold, -10 this morning. So
Oh, -10, man. That
yeah,
hurts
I
just hearing
know.
it. Okay, I've already somebody hang on. I got somebody asking something. Let's just make sure. We're not doing an actual presentation, but we're going to show you where this page is. So there isn't an actual presentation today. Okay, so hang on one second. So everybody on the call is probably aware that the NBC 2020 changes or NBC 2025 are now out for public review. That's what we're going to be looking at today. So these, again, are changes to the 2020 National Building Code that are proposed for the 2025 version of the National Building Code. So we're going to be fairly high level at what we're doing today. I mean, the objective is to go through relevant PCFs in these changes and talk a little bit about them, what we understand of what the PCF's talking about. And then we really are hoping that we can get some feedback from everyone on the call today, providing us with their views, if they have opinions about the PCF, suggestions about what they might want Fenestration Canada to say on the PCF in the comment period that ends December 18th. And then, of course, for you to have a look at them and be able to provide comment yourself. Anybody in Canada can provide comment. Actually, I guess anyone. I don't know in the US if they can or not. I assume so. Can provide comment on these proposed changes. We're going to show you where to do that. So, okay, we're going to get going. So the first thing I just want to show you is this is the page with the, actually, I'm going to go back one. This is actually the page, public review, fall 2023 for the changes to the 2020 National Building Code. There's the address for it. So I'm assuming everybody can see my screen, right? I shouldn't go without confirming that, Dave. Yeah. Okay, so that's the address right there at the top. You can go and check it out yourself. So what I'm going to do today is we're just going to go through the sections that are relevant and then the PCFs that are relevant. So I'm going to go through group by subject, and then I'm going to show you that, okay, so if you have interest in minimum lighting requirements, PCF number 1762, you would open that up. There's all of the information about the PCF. And if you want to provide a comment, top right corner there, submit a comment. It takes you to this page, gives you information about doing that. And then you go through the process of putting in all of your information. They won't accept the submission without your information. The relevant PCF and that you want to address. And then you can either simply check off any of these, support as the change is, support with comments, etc. And then a spot for you to provide comments. And then at the bottom, of course, send. So it's as simple as that. If you have an opinion or you have comments or you have concerns about a PCF, it's as easy as that to go in and provide some feedback. So there you go.
And Terry, as we're going through these, if people have comments, do we want them to raise their hands?
Yeah, we have a lot of people. Yeah, we got a lot of people on the call today. So if you can just raise your hand if you have a question or you want to provide a comment, and then I will do the best I can to try and monitor that. Okay, so let's go back one more here. Okay, so we're going to look at specifically changes National Building Code 2020. There's other sections that we're going to look at as well. So the National Fire Code, the National Energy Code, the Plumbing Code obviously has nothing to do with fenestration, so we're not going to be looking at that, but we will take a look into the other ones, and we'll look for relevant PCFs to the fenestration industry. Okay, so into here, lighting requirements, obviously not relevant. PCF 1765, projection of protruding building elements. This could potentially have an impact to somebody that is providing doors, maybe in an apartment building, common spaces, those kinds of projects. This PCF talks about those requirements. It lists all of the different clauses. And then if you look down at the bottom, well, down here, it's a bit hard to read, but so this is from 9953. So part 9, it says, except as permitted, obstructions located within 1980 millimeters of the floor shall not project horizontally more than 100 millimeters into passageways, corridors, etc., creating a hazard. So they've actually taken that language out and they point you back to 3.3.1.8, and it goes into a little bit more detail about what those projections, the heights, the projection that's allowed, etc. So if you play in that market where you have products that are in common hallways, etc., this could be of interest to you. 1980 millimeter projection. That could be something like a like panic hardware, maybe, that is on a door system that protrudes into the path. So that's something that if you have products that go into that kind of a market, you might want to take a look at it, see that it makes sense for your product type, and if you have any concerns, of course, you're free to submit a comment. Any thoughts about that, or can I move on?
Well, yeah, I just want to say it gets rid of that original language, and it says
Yes.
paths of travel shall comply with sentences 33182 and 3, but we don't have that because those sentences in NBC 2020 don't seem to deal with protruding building elements. They deal with something else. So, quite often in here we will find references to new things. For example, now they talk about Part 11, but then you don't have Part 11 to review. So this is not, it's not ideal, because it's referring to parts of the code that are not published yet, and so we can't say for sure what the meaning of some of these code changes are.
Sure, and if you go to 33182 and 3, sorry, let me make sure I got that right. 33182 and 3 in 2020. The language does say, except as permitted by sentence 3, except for passive travel in service rooms and dwelling units. So this is not for dwelling units. Building elements located within 1980 millimeters of the floor shall not project more than 100 millimeters horizontally into the paths of travel that could create a hazard. And then 3 says horizontal projection of protruding building element referred to in sentence 2 is permitted to be more than 100 millimeters provided the clearance between the element and the floor is less than 680. So if it's below 680, maybe a doorstop or something like that, it would not be affected by this clause. So this points back to that 3318. So
okay, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, so something to be aware of.
I must have looked at the wrong section of Part 3 earlier.
Yeah, no problem. I was able to chase it down just before the call. Okay, so I'm going to back up. We're going to go to the next one. Let's see here. Air tightness, 1814. This proposed change removes the normalized air leakage metric for air tightness level determination. This is whole building air tightness. So it doesn't specifically point out or require specific changes to air leakage for fenestration products. But as these requirements are changing, there could be an impact on air tightness of products being pointed at as being the being the cause for not meeting these requirements. So you might want to have a look at it. Again, it's not a specific change to anything to do with fenestration specifically, but probably a good idea to have a look at it just to make sure that you understand that there are changes coming for normalized leakage areas. Okay. That's, let's see, same one. Alterations. Okay, so 1812. Dave, you're going to have to help me on this one. So this proposed change states the application of proposed NBC Part 10 to the alteration of existing buildings. So National Building Code currently applies to alteration of existing buildings. However, authorities of jurisdiction may grant relaxations to specific code requirements that are not practical to apply to existing buildings relative to the importance of those requirements in meeting the code objectives. These relaxations may vary by jurisdiction, leading to confusion among code users about the degree of work required for the alteration to meet the code requirements. In order to provide a consistent set of requirements that apply to alteration of existing buildings in new part in NBC, the application of this set of requirements, including an appropriate relaxations, must be stated. Voluntary alteration of existing buildings presents an opportunity to upgrade the energy performance of the building. When significant repairs or alterations need to be made, the energy performance of the building should be improved at the same time where it's cost effective to do so, thereby minimizing the incremental cost of the upgrade. Code requirements that apply to alterations must be identified with any permitted relaxations provided where applicable. Building types that are excluded from the requirements to upgrade during an alteration, for example, tents, must be stated in order to clarify that the requirements are either impractical for that building type or that additional consideration should be given to prevent negative consequences. Providing a set of consistent, harmonized, cost-effective requirements that apply to alteration of existing buildings would provide code users, the industry, and authorities having jurisdiction with clear expectations of the degree of work required to improve energy performance of the existing buildings. So part 10 is the energy section. It will now apply to alterations of existing buildings. Dave, where was we were looking at it a little earlier about improvements must, I got to find it here.
Yeah, so they're referring to a new part, which is part 10. And there is an associated CCR 1824 that actually gives you the part 10 language that they're pointing to. And so there's a CCR 1812, 1824, and 1839 are related, and you can only get the whole story by going through all of them, and particularly 1824, which is where we found that language. And so if you scroll down and start looking for green, that'll be the new language.
Here we go.
And so yeah, so basically it's saying, except as provided in sentence 2, the alteration of existing buildings or parts thereof shall comply with Part 11, 2025 of Division B of the NECD. And that was the part that I found confusing because we don't have Part 11 in front of us, so we're not certain.
Part 11 is the section on existing buildings that we actually don't have yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where basically, I mean, a really high level story is alterations to existing buildings. You're going to have to bring them up to the current code standards for energy efficiency. And so that applies to buildings of residential occupancy, buildings containing business and personal services, and buildings containing a mix of residential and non-residential. And then I think somewhere down there below, it talks about buildings that are exempt from that. Or in one of these, you jump around a little bit in here. It might be in 1812, but they refer to another one, 1813, where they defined heritage buildings. So, it says it doesn't apply to, farm buildings and various other buildings and heritage buildings. And so in order to not apply, somebody has to basically declare your building a heritage building.
Right. And I actually dug into that and found the definition that they provide. So let me find this here.
That's existing building and heritage
buildings. So existing buildings means a building that was constructed more than 5 years before the effective date of the code. And a heritage building is an existing building that is formally recognized by federal, provincial, territory, or municipal authorities for its heritage value. So that's the two definitions of existing and heritage. Whoop, I've got a bit of an unstable internet here.
Yeah, and then they go on to refer to a document standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada, which I guess is a guideline for your federal, provincial, or territorial or municipal authority to determine, what they can qualify as a heritage building.
Yep.
So heritage buildings are excluded, and I think was it in 1812? I actually I'm working off a PDF copy. The funny thing about the PDF copy, though, it doesn't exist. It doesn't contain all of the changes that are online.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's
So
confusing to follow.
yeah, it is. Oh yeah, okay. So it is 1812. I'm looking at 1812
Okay.
right now. Okay.
Yep.
And it says that Part 10 of Division Me does not apply to farm buildings, tents, air-supported structures, relocatable buildings, open-air storage garages or carports described in sentence 935.11, or construction camp. And then it says does not apply to heritage buildings or to parts of a building that have been formally recognized by a federal, provincial, territorial, municipal authority as having heritage value.
Yeah. Something else I couldn't find was defining the amount of an alteration or a change to an existing building where this comes into play.
Well, yeah, and
something.
so the funny thing, so when you read through their statement of the problem and the justification, and they talk about the relaxations may vary by jurisdiction, I'm not sure what they're talking about, because it looks like the code language seems to be quite firm, that alterations of existing buildings, apply Part 10 of Division B, which then refers to this Part 11, this new Part 11, which I've got to assume is like energy efficiency related, kind of like BC 2018 Part 10, right? So
Yes,
I think we can anticipate that what it's saying is that alterations to existing buildings, you got to bring them up to speed with the current versions of the code. So my own personal opinion, won't this result in people, let's say you wanted to make an alteration to an existing building, but you didn't want to bring it all the way up to current code, right? You just wanted to improve it like 50% of the way. So isn't this going to prevent you from doing any alterations at all? Unless the detailed provisions of this new Part 11 give you some leeway in that.
Yes.
So that would be my concern is now that you need to apply the energy efficiency requirements to alterations to existing buildings, that it's a disincentive for, let's say I have a house that, has a 2x4 wall. How the heck are you going to bring that up to the new
it's
energy?
Unrealistic. Yeah. Unless you're doing, deep energy retrofits, right? So a couple of comments, Dave. I just want to grab these while we move through this. Considering your comments, lack of the reference to Part 11, would Fenestration Canada be submitting comments on proposed change 1824? Yes, our intent is. What I'm hoping, though, to get out of this call is some feedback from members on, what they see and what they're concerned with. It's easy, quote unquote, easy for me to provide comments that might be, sort of my opinion or how I see it. But I'm hoping to get some feedback from you guys so that I make sure I capture and represent, what it is that our members are concerned with and that they want to see changed, right? Anton, I'm gonna bring you in rather than try and how do I do that here? Right there. Okay, you should be able to chat with us because you got a couple of comments here that I think are useful. You're muted.
Do we need to unmute Anton?
Yeah, I'm trying to, but it doesn't seem to.
Allow to talk. There we go. And he's in there twice.
Can you hear me?
So, yeah. Okay. Can try and go ahead there.
There's just no button to turn anything on.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
No, this is a major issue in BC for leaky condos. We do permitted remediation multifamily projects. We've been doing them for 25 years. So there's a common when you're working with architects and envelope consultants to upgrade a building, to bring the building up to code. So we run into the number one biggest conflict here is an existing 3-story building that's unsprinklered, that if it was built today, it would require sprinklers. So there's actually a clause in the BC code that addresses this, that says you're not obligated to put sprinklers into a building the minute you upgrade the envelope, per se, like, or you do an upgrade, because the cost would be prohibitive.
Right.
But where we run into problems is when we have a Part 3 building that has 900 millimeter sill heights, which is extremely common, and we got to bring it up to code to go to 1070, but then you go to 1070 and now the opening gets too small and you don't meet egress for the bedrooms anymore. So every single project we have with this type of expectation requires hiring a code consultant to make a decision on what is more important, egress or fall protection. And depending on which code consultants you get a different answer. So there is some what I call case law on how to handle this, but where I've run into problems in certain municipalities that had or have higher U-value requirements, that an existing single family home that might have sliding windows in a bedroom, if you have to convert those to triple, you might make the sash smaller due to the weight requirements going from double to triple, which then might mean that the window struggles to meet egress. Therefore, you have to make the rough opening bigger. So the consequence of this is replacing like with like for windows in homes becomes a real challenge in regards to, are you obligated, and I get this request all the time, are you obligated to bring that window up to current code? Or can you match the existing code? And the BC code's got a clause that allows you to make a decision, whereas this one here is going to put people in a predicament because you're going to be forced to make a decision to violate one code requirement for another code requirement. And for me, there needs to be a precedent clause that in the event that life safety is compromised, or in the event that this compromises a life safety requirement, the life safety item is, I guess, superior.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And that's how the code consultants tend to weigh on this issue, is that life safety trumps everything.
Yeah, sure,
So,
of course. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, no, that's good. That's good. Anybody else have comments on this one? It could be pretty impactful, obviously, by Anton's comments and being required to bring a building up to energy performance of Part 10 could be pretty challenging. Okay, no hands up. I'm going to go back.
And I've got NECB 2020 open right now, and it ends at Part 10. And there's no Part 11. So
yeah.
Again, what are those requirements that are in there, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I gotta find where I was here. Things, alterations go. Okay. Building envelope. Building installation option. Okay. Combustible scope. Storage tank. Define terms. That's where we talked about that. Encapsulated mass timber. I looked into that. There was nothing in there that I could see that was relevant to fenestration. Don't call. Sure what this is. Not relevant. Okay. Okay, fenestration. Thermal characteristics of fenestration, PCF 1823. Okay, Dave, are you okay to run with this one? I want to.
Sure, just let me find it in my PDF.
Yeah, I got a hunch there's going to be some comments on this one.
Yeah. So, so that if you scroll down, you will find that the required thermal characteristics are not changing in 2025. So this table looks very similar, very familiar.
Yep.
And in fact, these requirements have not changed since they first came into effect in 2010. NBC. So they're not making any changes to these requirements when you go the prescriptive route. However, if you scroll down, there is now a new table, and they're saying, yeah, you can only meet this prescriptive route provided you've got a maximum solar heat gain coefficient of 0.45 for fenestration and door-to-wall ratios of less than 17%, 0.40 for greater than 17% and less than 22%, and 0.26 for greater than 22%. And so what that's going to mean, so 0.26 is quite low.
Yes.
So to get a center of glass value of 0.26 in a window basically requires triple glazing with 2 low E coatings, and one of the low E coatings needs to be triple silver, and the other low E coating needs to be dual silver. To get that in the overall unit U value under the NFRC system can require even more. In fact, it may be difficult, very difficult to get there. You know, let's say in a casement, because of the way NFRC treats products, right? Your sliding doors 2000 by 2000, it's got a lot more center of glass area. You know, your direct set window is 1200 by 1500, but then your casement is 600 by 1500, and casements have a lot thicker frames than direct sets. So if you go into your casements, you're going to find that you might need a glazing that you don't currently offer to get down to the 0.26 for the overall window U value under NFRC.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great point. I'd be really curious if there's anybody online that can quote their solar heat gain numbers of a product that they currently market that would be a 2.6 or lower. I mean, I don't want you to give away, you know, everything, but because I'm thinking a triple silver in a casement. I'm just trying to go back to my former life and remember what those numbers were. And I think they were pretty close.
Well, Fenestration Canada is about to publish that Alio Gellett's
yes, comfort
paper.
glazing paper. Yes.
Yeah, the thermal characteristics for comfort. If you want it, I could jump in there. Let me just find it. I had it teed up already. Geez, where I just gave a presentation on that. Where the
So
heck
is there? I'd love. I don't know. You know, maybe everybody's a bit shy this morning. Is there anybody that can easily hit a 0.26 in some of their products with, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 low E's? 3 might be a bit extreme as far as being easy.
Comments? We got any hands up here?
I've just got a comment from Rawson. So given Canada's climate, I feel the requirement of solar heat gain lower than a 0.4 is unjustified. Recommend revising 936.27 to have 2 options: maximum solar heat gain of 45 for a window to wall ratio under 17, and a maximum of 40 for a window wall ratio over 17. Okay. So Cam at Thermalproof here is telling me 270 clear in a casement in his system is a 0.24. So, you know, it's pretty achievable, I think, in a lot of product lines. I think. I don't want to generalize too much, so I'd love to hear from others that either can.
Yeah, so it's easier in a casement.
Yeah,
and if you want me to present Al's paper just briefly, I won't like go right through it.
Yep,
I could share my screen here.
Yep, let me just open it. Okay, go ahead.
And so here's Al's paper. Sorry, you can see it now, right?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. You are screen sharing. Okay, let me stop sharing. I might have shared the wrong one. Share screen. Screen 2. Share. Okay, now can you see it, Terry?
Not yet.
Interesting.
You have to go
hang
to
on.
upper toolbar at the top.
Hang on. I'm gonna stop. So now try it because I was still sharing.
Oh, okay, got it. Share screen. Screen 2. Share. Says I'm screen. It says I'm
Yep,
screen
yep,
sharing and
you're
it's showing.
there, you're there, yep.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So Cam, you mentioned so this is Al, and I think he's taking typical here, right? And so he's saying, here's a dual pane, 1 silver, 2 silver, 3 silver, right? And your solar heat gain. So if you're at 1 silver, you're at 0.23. If you're at 2 silver, you're at 0.19, and then you go down from there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But things look very different for a fixed window because of its size of 1200 by 1500, and typically the frame is less thermally conductive. Sorry, is less wide. I mean, so the more visible glass area.
Right.
You
Yeah.
got to be 2 silver with a room side coat to get to 0.29, and then 0.21, or you got to be in triple glazed, and you're not until you go with double silver on the outside at 0.26, and then you got to go with triple silver like a 366 and 180 on the inside to get 0.20. So it's more difficult for those types of products, as you can see.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's going to get real complicated when you look at your entire product matrix. The sliding window here, it appears to be less difficult. As we all know, sliding windows are modeled with that darn interlock, where
Right,
direct
right.
set and fixed deck set and casement combinations aren't modeled with the T-bar, right? So then it's just creating a really complex situation for attempting to comply with that. You know, what do they want us to use? Different glazings, like have 3 silvers in the casement and 2 silvers in the direct set. You know, this is just going to be very complicated and difficult to comply with. And so we voted actually to publish this paper. Right now it's a discussion paper. I'm not sure where we're at on that, but when
it's
voted
being translated. Yeah, it's in the
being
works.
translated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is very helpful for taking a look at this in the context. And I'll just stop sharing. I think we've seen enough of that. Don't want to turn the whole thing into that paper.
Yeah. No, we're not there for that, for sure. Where did my proposed? Okay, so another comment here, Anton saying completed leaf analysis with a sliding door system. Triple glazed options range from solar heat gains of 0.389 to 0.196. So pretty wide range there. I think, my argument or my comments when I was at the energy efficiency steering committee meetings was that one number applied across the country does not make sense. Whether it's under 17 and 22 or over 22, a single number doesn't make sense. The numbers are driven by the building design, orientation, location, etc. So, and
It's central panning at its best, Terry. One size fits all, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't.
And then the
work.
people in Quebec hate it. They want as much solar heat gain as possible for some reason. You're having a fiery conversation with Robert.
Sure, and you know what? A 4.5 or a 5.0 or a 5.5 is probably perfectly fine in the right building, in the right location, with the right amount of glazing. My worry is that over 22, if you go above 0.26 on the West Coast, certainly on the southern half of the province, in a southern or western orientation with no other shading devices, etc., over 2.6, you're starting to run into problems in the shoulder season and in the summertime.
Yep.
Right. So, my thing is that this is very regional issue, driven by, specific building designs, etc., and dealing with shading or non-shading case by case. So I'm concerned. My concern is throwing out a number that applies across the country.
Yeah.
That's going to be my comment, but I'm looking for comments from our members and how they see this table. If they think if it makes sense or doesn't make sense, or what they would like Fenestration Canada to to put forth as comments. Cam just made a comment here. Cam from Thermoproof, suggesting solar heat gain should be tied to heating degree days, and I agree quite heavily, quite strongly. Then you could get into regional differences, based on heating degree days, climate zones, etc. I do know that the folks over at AVFQ are working on that premise. I was talking with Robert, and he was working on solar heat gain values based on heating degree days as well. I think that that's probably a good path. I haven't seen their information yet. I'm waiting for him to share that with me. It's coming. I just haven't seen it yet. So hopefully I'll get that soon. So Anton, solar heat gain is a performance item, not work as a prescriptive requirement. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Now I do recall a comment about the over 22% window to wall ratio, and that would push you into performance modeling. But I don't see that in this anywhere. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. So the problem is,
sure
so these are the changes to the 2020, sorry, NBC for 2025. We have not yet been hit with the 2020 NBC, and we might find out some disturbing things when that comes in. So keeping in mind. So actually, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump off this because I do think it's relevant. Terry, can I start sharing my screen again?
Yeah, let me just stop here. Hang on. Okay, go ahead.
So now can you see my screen?
Yep.
So this is the 2020 NBC. All right, and you've got your prescriptive requirements that we already have, and then we have 936.5 energy performance compliance. So this, if you don't want to abide by the prescriptive, you go to energy performance compliance. And we now also have, these are new sections, 936.6 air tightness of building envelope, 936.7 tiered energy performance compliance path, and tiered energy performance compliance prescriptive path. These two ones, 936.5 and 936.7, they allow you to compare a reference house against the proposed house. And here's the kicker. I always thought that the reference house was the same house as the proposed house, only meeting the prescriptive requirements. It's not. The reference house has a window and door to wall ratio of 17%. And a U value, a solar heat gain of the windows of 0.26, and it's got the windows equally spread on the four cardinal sides, whereas the actual house may be a townhome that only has two elevations with windows in them and has a huge fenestration and door to wall ratio. So you're going to find that now, if you want to use the performance path to get around this is going to drive even lower U value windows potentially.
Yes.
And so this hasn't even hit us yet.
Yeah, as that comes into play this spring, you're right. There's going to be some interpretations. There's going to be some new things that are happening that people are going to be wrestling with. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing, energy efficiency under Part 9, they do not have the TEDI and TUI approach that BC has. It doesn't exist in the national code. So you can't just model that building for TEDI or TUI or MUI, right, as an alternative. That doesn't exist in the national codes. So it's going to be very different from what we have in BC, which is, we expect BC to prepare us for what's happening nationally, but it's not. It's going to be a different ballgame nationally.
Yeah.
And this performance prescriptive path, there's a code change request that affects that, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, so I'm going to go back right there. Okay, obviously a big item, certainly has potential for some pretty significant impacts. If anybody has any other comments, certainly by all means you can share now. You can, like we showed you earlier, you can go in and comment to this PCF directly. You're certainly welcome, and we encourage you to do that if you have an opinion either way. And if you would rather send me comments via email, I'm happy to take those and review and share those as part of Fenestration Canada's comments as we work our way through this. Terry at fenestrationcanada.ca if you want to do that. Okay, I'm going to back out of this.
I think we're running out of time a little, Terry, so I think we better jump straight to one like 1889.
Where is it?
I might have to present my screen for this.
Yeah, I know, I couldn't find it earlier. It was
It's
really
in the PDF.
right there. There
Oh,
it is.
1889, go for it.
Yeah, okay, let's open that up. Okay, so energy conservation points for fenestration doors. This proposed change assigns additional energy conservation points for higher performing fenestration indoors. So you may or may not know that the table that's currently in 2020 through the points table for fenestration indoors for energy performance, it only had 1 and 2
and 3
and 3, sorry.
Yep.
And now you can see that there are additional lines to this table. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, so this relates to the not yet in place tiered energy performance compliance prescriptive path in part 9. And so basically it goes up to performance tier 2. And actually, Terry, if you, I could share my screen again.
Sure, hang on 1 second. Go ahead.
Okay, you can see my screen.
Yep.
And so a tiered energy performance compliance prescriptive path. So this is it's a performance path, but it's a prescriptive performance path. And it allows you to get only up to tier 2. So in other words, in future years, this won't exist. Once you get to 3, 4, and 5, it says reserved. That means we're not going to do anything above 2 using this path, right? But then it gives you basically energy conservation measures and points for above ground walls versus code minimum. And for fenestration indoors, and it currently says, and you require 10 points. And so at 1.22, that gets you in lower mainland 6.9 or 7 points. In colder places like Calgary, it gets you 4.6 or 5.5 points, and you have to make up the rest elsewhere. Which you can do with now. You can do it with air tightness and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing, because this is a fenestration industry geared presentation. If I stop sharing again and you go to the code change request you were presenting.
Yeah. Okay.
Now they are recognizing you can get a 1.05 window. You are now all the way there based on the windows at 1.05. Right? In lower mainland. In Alberta, you would have to go to 0.94. You know, which you can maybe get there with the rec sets and casements currently with a triple glaze with, say, a 270 or 366 on a 180.
Yeah.
So now they're allowing you to, and this is going to be effective 2025. We haven't even got 2020 in yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know
don't get too excited about this.
Road, so, yeah.
So yeah, that's it there.
So but you know, it does. I mean, you know, we kind of chuckle about we're looking at 2025. We don't even have 2020 yet. But you know, this allows the industry to say, okay, well, now we know what these numbers look like, and if I can have a window system that hits those numbers, I'm going to be able to go to my client and say, I've got all your energy conservation points just in my windows.
Yep.
And you're good to go. And
plus the comfort, right, Terry? Don't forget about
and the
wearing
comfort,
a t-shirt
absolutely.
in the wintertime instead of a sweater.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Anton's got his hand raised. Anton.
I'm just going to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
So
go ahead.
Minimum energy rating column, second column on the left.
Yes.
That's the solar heat gain, and you need high solar heat gain to hit some of those ER numbers. So to hit an ER of 40 with a U value of 1.05, I'd have to do some math and calculate, but I wonder if they've checked that. Like,
my
how
goodness
does the
gracious.
minimum solar heat gain issue come into that category?
Oh my God. Like, so it is schizophrenic. That's what you're pointing out, right?
Yeah,
because if you don't want to do the really low solar heat gain onto this prescriptive, you have the prescriptive performance path, which will drive you to huge solar heat gain.
Yeah.
What are you guys thinking when you're
probably looking at a triple with 2 180s, maybe get you at a 105, maybe. I don't
like if just the way they weight the ER calculation, solar heat gain is significantly more impactful in the formula.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like I've seen some stuff that, you know, like I'll just use just off the top of my head, a 161 U value with a 0.5 solar heat gain coefficient will get you an ER of 34. So like that just gives you a ballpark sort of number, but like the 34 is crucial for the Energy Star thing. So there's that sort of, how do you get to 34 is kind of a common question that I get asked. And so you got to balance it out. But when I run these numbers, the solar heat gain is just so far out of balance with U value in the formula.
Right.
So it's a broken system that if they're recognizing they need to cap solar heat gain, but they're still allowing the traditional ER formula, it's going to create, like, I feel sorry for the enforcement arm to this, because how do you enforce this stuff?
It's almost like the code writers didn't know what the hell they were doing.
But are these two columns? I'm not sure I understand this table then, because maybe these two columns are independent of each other.
Well, but why
it's either or.
It
right?
says minimum.
Okay.
Why does it say minimum?
Yeah. So, but a minimum 40 ER gets you those points. Okay. Sorry, they're not tied together.
Okay.
That's what I was seeing when I first looked at this. I was thinking you had to have a 105 and a 40. Sorry, my mistake. Not the case.
Yeah, it's either or.
Yeah. Okay.
So they've cut you off effectively from the ER route in the prescriptive 936 table requirements.
Yeah.
But then they've brought it right back in.
Yeah.
In the prescriptive performance path.
Because if you're pushed to do a 0.26 because you're over 22% window to wall, can you even get a 40 or a 44 or 42 ER with a 0.26 solar heat gain?
No, absolutely not. The solar heat gain has to be huge, above 0.5 to get to those ERs,
for sure.
right?
Yeah,
so you know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Rawson's making a point here that 1834 and 1889 have different proposed revisions as well to 936.86. So we're going to have to dive into this one in much more detail and try and get a real handle on the implications of this and provide some comments.
We almost need like maybe a working group or something, Terry.
Which needs to come together in the next 18 days and have an answer. I know. I hear you though. We're gonna have to get.
Anybody want to be part of this working group? Put up your hand.
Yeah, Brad's hand went up.
We got Rosen, Brad Feevold.
Okay, hang on a sec, guys. I want to make sure I get everybody here.
Anton, Rosen.
Oh,
Brad, his hand went up, but it went back down again. Maybe he had second thoughts.
Oh, hang on. Okay.
Sorry, wait a minute. Looking at the wrong Brad.
Brad, I'm gonna open your mic, so go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Terry. Yeah, absolutely, I'll be on there. There's no question that this is in conflict with that other section where they're restricting it, right?
Yeah.
I think it just is unfortunate that they seem to be going in two different paths in this particular code language.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to talk about it. We need to figure out.
Contradictory, absolutely. Okay.
Alexi is also wants, or
sorry,
Alexi has a hand up, but I don't know if it's because he wants to talk or because he wants to volunteer.
Okay, yeah. Hang on a sec. Hang on. We'll get you. Hang on. Where is he?
Okay, we're allowed to unmute now, Alexi, if what you want to actually do is talk.
I'll join the group.
He wants to join the group. Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're in.
You're in.
Alexi.
Yeah.
You want me to talk again?
Sure.
Oh,
sorry, Brad.
I think I should unmute again. So,
sorry, I'm just trying to click on the right people here.
Okay.
Alexei, I don't know if I've got your company or your email. Can you let me know?
Well, we're recording this. Can you put it in the chat? Or that just to the presenter?
Yeah, I'll be able to chase it down.
Okay, great.
It's okay. Okay.
Got 7 minutes left, Terry. What else do you want to jump on here?
And I'm just trying to clean up some comments here. Hang on. Ross is asking about comments to me that you would like us to consider for comments during this public review. If you can have those comments to me by Friday next week, that'll still give me, about 10 days or so to make sure I can work through them and get them built. Thanks, Alexa. I'll get them in. So any comments on what we've discussed today or anything else in this public review that you want to comment to, and you would like us to potentially comment in sort of along the same vein, if it makes sense for us, certainly send those comments to me by next Friday, and I'll work my way through them and get them into this comment period. Okay, so that's done. Whoops.
I think we probably have time for just one more quick one here.
Okay,
that'd
let
be
me just
proposed
back
change
up. I'm just trying.
1821, and I can present on that one if you like, Terry.
Yep. Okay, let me just get out of this. Okay, go ahead. I'm just trying to
share my
make
screen
some notes here.
again. 1821 share. You can see that screen.
Yep.
So it relates to thermal bridging requirements, but it does touch on fenestration in its comments further down because they make a very interesting. Well, first of all, what has changed here is fenestration indoor areas shall be calculated to the actual size of the fenestration indoors. They've struck out rough opening in the wall, so that is a change in this section. But they have some real interesting text here that may contradict. Okay, so continuity of insulation where components meet. So they're talking about the intersection of two components, such as a wall with another wall, a roof, or a wall with a window. So they're saying that means there should be no gap in the insulation between the two components. For example, to reduce thermal bridging, the space between the window frame and the rough opening in the wall may be treated with low expansion sealant foam product complying with that standard. So this is going to fly in the face. This is just a note, though. That's a note to the part, right? So it's not normative or mandatory, but this is going to fly up against sloped and flash subsill drainage under
draining cavities. Yeah, absolutely.
So that jumped out at me.
We're going to want to have comments on that too. So
yeah, I did sit in a group that was discussing this, and there was a lot of discussion about maintaining drainage of that cavity and how much of that cavity needs to remain open. Talk about hydrophobic insulators, rod and caulk back seals, back dams, using a sill pan that would allow you to keep that cavity open. So yeah, there's some conflicting direction here, if you like, that needs to be addressed. So Brad, sorry, you had a comment?
No, you just answered it. We're
volunteers can now put down their hands. Put up your hand if you want to speak.
Yeah. Alexei, you've still got your hand up. Is that from before?
There goes down.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I think we're pretty close to the hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. By all means, I put the link to this page in the chat, so you can grab that if you want to go and take a deeper look into some of the things we talked about, or look for others. It's certainly possible that I missed something or Dave missed something that was in this public review. So if you see something that we didn't talk about today, we really appreciate it if you want to pass that along to us with any comments you might have, and we can dig into that. If you have comments that you'd like us to review and potentially put into the public comments that Fenestration Canada will put in, please have those to me by Friday of next week, and I will do everything I can to make sure I include them in the work that I'm going to do. And at that, I think that we're really close to the top of the hour. Anybody online, comments, questions before we go? You've got a nice group here, lots of smart people on the call. If you've got any questions that you'd like to discuss. Okay, at that, thanks very much for joining us today. Hopefully we were able to point out a few things of interest that we need to be looking at, and I'm going to continue to work my way through this along with Dave, and we'll get some comments in before the 18th deadline.
Along with Dave, Anton,
along with Dave,
Brad,
and others, Alex. Yes, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Dave.